All right, we're kicking off. Here we are, Isaac Savage from NZ Fighter. Joined with me today is a former kickboxing champ and household known name, none other than Neil Waka. Welcome today, Neil.
Pleasure. It's nice to be here, Isaac. Thanks for inviting me to have a chat.
Hey, look, it's hard to believe that you started this all the way back before the 80s. And I mean, you still look not a day over 25.
Right. Right.
What's the secret, mate? Is it healthy living? Is it a good diet? Is it, a good mindset?
Lots of chocolate. No, that's the killer for me. I try not to eat too much chocolate. I don't know what it is. I feel incredibly lucky. Probably DNA as well. Maori side, possibly the mix, because a lot of us have Maori Scottish. So I think I actually don't know. I feel lucky anyway.
Just blessed, eh? Just blessed. It's all good. Now, a lot of people in New Zealand know your name. You must get recognised all the time. But if we go back all the way back to when you first started, for those that don't know, you're at a bit of a turning point in terms of the police college or media, and going back all those years, was that a hard decision at the time? Was it, oh, do I want to be a police officer? Do I want to be in TV? How easy was it to make that decision at the time?
No, it was difficult. I grew up sort of like a lot of young people, not knowing really what I wanted to do. So I did a lot of jobs when I was at school because we didn't have a lot of money. And so I wanted to ensure that I made the right decision. I wanted to be a professional athlete, if that's because I played 4 representative sports. And so I thought maybe I've got some ability there, but whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure that it was the right thing and that I could make some money, because it's kind of sucked being poor. And so when I got to it, I had always wanted to be in the police. I had an uncle that was an inspiration there, and close friends who were inspiring me there. So I thought, yep, I'd been in radio for a period of time, and I have this propensity to get a little bit bored if I'm there too long, and I work really hard in a particular career. So it's like when I get to a point, it's like if I'm not continuing to elevate, then I need to move to something else. Same with martial arts. I've moved to different martial arts. I'm probably throwing out a whole lot of ideas for you to talk to, but I got to that point in radio where it's like, all right, I need to now decide if now's the time to join the police. So I went through the recruitment process, and I received my acceptance to police college and was all set to go down. At the same time, I'd gone through auditions at TV1 and TV3, as it was known then, and was accepted to TV3. Went through all this process, which was quite involved. And so I had the two, and I think I try and, when I talk to people, I try and emphasize the fact that having options is probably the greatest thing you could ever have. Have options. Without options, you're stuck. But without options, then you can make a decision on where you want to go. So the police recruiter said to me essentially, look, no one lasts in TV, so go and do that, because there are very limited opportunities to do that. We'll keep your recruitment on file. As soon as you get booted out of television, then we'll send you down to police college. So I never got to go to police college. TV lasted a little bit longer than any one of us or anybody probably anticipated. And so I never got to fulfill that dream, but I've always had a healthy respect for police. So never got to go down to police college after all.
Oh, well, we certainly benefited from you being on television as well. So
thank you.
One of the things I did notice is that you did say back in the day it took you a wee while to get used to the camera, but looking at you on TV, you looked so polished. You looked like you're meant to be there. You obviously did a really good job of potentially masking that, but a lot of hard work went into that as well, right?
Yeah, I felt that I was failing right at the start. At the start of TV3, we went into receivership quite early, and a lot of people started to get laid off. And I was fortunate that they held on to me. And so I thought, man, I could be laid off at any time, so I need to work harder. So probably took me a couple of years where I really felt comfortable, because coming from radio back in the old days, before the war, you're taught to project a lot in radio. And I was doing this in television, because if the camera was quite a ways away and you think to yourself, I've got to project towards the camera, and that was so wrong, because you've got a microphone and sometimes I'm a little bit slow to pick things up, and so I was projecting, and so it's like, you don't have to project the microphone's here, even though the camera's over there. So there's a lot of things I needed to work out, and I would really focus on my craft, and I would spend a lot of time looking at myself, trying to, and people thought, oh, you're just doing, it's like, yeah, it wasn't about that. It was about trying to focus, and I wanted to be the best I could be. I wanted to be the best in the country. But it wasn't about the vanity, it was about just being the best. And so I wanted to focus on how I could be better, get rid of little idiosyncrasies, and focus and focus and focus. And my focus wasn't on what people were saying, it was what was happening in my head to ensure, I made a lot of mistakes, and I've always made mistakes wherever I've gone, but it was trying to ensure that I didn't make the same mistake twice. That's always been my focus, so I could learn to develop and evolve as a broadcaster and everything I did. And when I'd hear someone just make a comment about something, I go, okay, that's cool. I've got to get better. I've got to get better.
It's quite a brutal world, whether it be sport or media or business. And you would have, regardless of ethnic backgrounds, just being that new up and comer, did you face a bit of resistance and a bit of, I don't know, like, was it quite challenging cracking into that time?
Oh yeah, like I've had my haters, and I never say that to get any kind of sympathy, because I grew up in quite a violent background, and people don't sort of see that side. They just go, yeah, whatever. That's where I learned to fight, to actually start off with, because when you grow up in that kind of environment, you become unafraid of physical violence. But you can either go. You can take different paths. You can use it to make you better and stronger, or you can use it to go into a bad direction. And I thought, I don't want to go in a bad way. I want to use it to make me stronger. And you use it to face challenges. And so I had haters, from all walks of life. People are always going to hate you, and you can't spend your life focusing on the haters. You can only use that to help make you stronger and make you better, and no matter what you want to achieve. And so if people are, because some of the criticisms could be right, some of the things that they say could be right, you don't face them and go, oh, you're right, you're so amazing. You don't do that. You just listen and go, okay, there's something to that, so I need to be better. And so you just use that to make you stronger, to help you to evolve. Or some of it's just cruel. And so you go, I'll chuck that out. I used to have so much hate mail and emails, and I wish I'd kept them. I didn't, and I wish I had, because I didn't think 20, 30 years down the line I'd be able to use them to show people. But I had so much hate mail about just, I was one of the first Maori to be in broadcasting and mainstream, and to be there for so long. So I just didn't think that, when you're at the start, you don't think you're going to be there for so long, because you're just trying to fight to stay alive. But I've been literally punched and kicked, both physically and figuratively, in the organization, in the industry. In the industry, mainly just figuratively, but you just get used to it, and you just go, it's just part of going through the process. People are hating on you, so they're going to hate on you so much that it just becomes white noise after a while. And as I say, you use that to help you get stronger. I don't think I'm a thick-skinned person, but you just learn to use that as a way to strengthen you.
I loved how you put that, because there's two sides to it, as you said, that at times when people criticize you, one, sometimes they're actually doing it to make you better, or they're jealous. And also, two, the people that send that hate mail, they usually ones aren't doing what you're doing. They're never usually doing better than you. And that's something you probably took on there naturally, or thought about. But yeah, you dealt with it in an awesome way. Now, in saying that, when you were cracking the media side, had you won your titles in kickboxing then? You'd come from that background?
It's a combination. See, when I had a lot of energy when I was young, so being brought up in the military, we had a lot of kids that were going over to Singapore, coming back with black belts in Taekwondo and Judo, and were swimmers, weirdly. They were coming back. I couldn't swim to save myself when I was young, and I'd look at these kids going, I want to beat some of them, It's like, So my dad put me into judo. That was my first martial arts. I did that for 5 years. And I got to be quite good. I was winning in tournaments, but my instructor said to my father something around the lines of, he's got a lot of potential, but his technique's not so good, because I was actually hurting them, because my technique was slightly off. So instead of doing a good choke hold, I was actually putting my forearm into the Adam's apple, stuff like this. So because they were better than me, so I was thinking there has to be a better way that I can do it. Maybe not so good on the technique, but just so I could get them to stop, because they were so much better than me. So I was doing things to win, weren't quite the way that I should be doing it. I just wanted to win, even if it wasn't quite by the rules. So that was my first. So it was just, trying to be better. And then I get to another martial art and I go, okay, I've got some good grounding there, so I'd try something else. I wanted to try stand-up, so I did boxing for a while, then I did kung fu for a while. Okay, I can add this to me. And then I got into a lot of fights. And I never started them, and I wasn't a bully. I didn't like that kind of thing. So I had a lot of gay friends for some reason. I just gravitated towards, they were funny. We just had so many laughs. They were just the funniest people I come across sometimes, and I hated people picking on them. I couldn't get this in my mind, into my mind, why people would do this. And I'm cheeky, so I just end up getting into fights. And so then I'd put some of the stuff into practice, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but I never lost. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. So then I'd start up boxing clubs, at school. So we'd get into these boxing fights, and so they were controlled. And I thought, I'm not losing this stuff. So then I'd do more, and I'd do more, and I'd beat up bigger guys. Because as I said, when you're brought up in a violent thing where you're getting hidings off adults, and it's like you fear less. And so you start growing and start getting more confident. And so when I got into, there's all this background of martial arts and fighting prior to coming into television, but this stuff, I did a story on Lolo, interestingly.
What year was that? Not the 1990 clip, was it?
Yeah, I think so. It might have been.
Had you already gone titles then, or did that get you into the kickboxing side, or had you already won your titles before that 1990 clip?
Well, I'd done sort of a couple of bare knuckle things that no one sort of knew about.
Man, we're learning some stuff today.
Yeah, that's sort of, like
Knuckles
they weren't just sort of things that have been organised. And I'd done sort of a couple of those just for fun where no one sort of knew me. And when I did the story on law, we connected. And I thought, maybe there's something there. So he said, come along, and that's when I got to know Ray and Filimu and the boys, and we just all connected, and I loved it, man. The opportunity to be a part of this group, and I didn't even know how good everyone was yet, and we actually developed and everyone started winning titles together, and it was amazing. And Ray and I are still best friends today. We still keep in touch,
Looking back at the club then, you had the Rays, you had Jason Von Moore, you had yourself, you had
Jason Sully,
that gym back then, I mean, that would have been, looking at today's gyms, still people train hard, etc. But that gym was full of killers. That was Murderers Row, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't, I don't think it wasn't at the start, but it became that. And the brotherhood that we had was just unbelievable. We didn't even know that it was like that at the start. We had Ray, and Ray wasn't the heavyweight. Ray was a cruiserweight, arguably the greatest cruiserweight ever. And with Filimu was our heavyweight. Psycho was, like, in my mind, one of the greatest super middleweights the world's ever seen. And if you could make money like they can in the MMA, he would have gone down in history. But those guys had to start moving into heavyweight, because at the time that was the only way to make, decent money.
How did it go from you going to the club to getting titles? How long did that journey take?
Oh, I couldn't really tell you. I don't know what the timeline was like. Maybe a year, within a year, maybe 2 years. I actually, but we used to mock each other, and that was the fun thing about it. You know, the Brown Boys used to mock each other about if you lost. I think I only lost a couple of fights, but if you lost, you got mocked, like in a fun way. It's like, yeah, no, you can't stand with us because you just lost it. You just that's cool. That's cool though. It's cool. But you know, it's just like it was an absolute privilege and honor. Just, you know, when you look back, how amazing and how tight everyone still is, and how some of these guys have gone off, and you know, John Conway's, and they've gone and developed their own gyms, and you know, like Dougie's done with the CBD,
CKB.
CKB, you know, and they've developed their own gyms, and with Psycho's gym, and you know, they're some of the best gyms in the country. It's phenomenal to see how the birth of what we were able to be a part of has gone on to be so amazing. You know?
Oh, and it must be such an honor and privilege to be a part of that from the get-go. You must sometimes watch that and be like, wow, you know, I was with this. I grew up with this. I was a part of it, part of that journey.
Yeah, I feel I'm a tiny part. I'm glad that I was able to help highlight some of the amazing things that these guys have done. I feel I was nothing in comparison with half of these guys. Because the other thing was, my life has been different journeys, and because I represented in 4 different sports, that was one, and that was a massive influence on my life. See, I don't have trophies up, I don't have anything up of anything that I've done, because they were steps for me. It certainly influenced my life and helped me to gain confidence and to be stronger in everything that I've done, and helped me to achieve a lot more. But then once that's done, it's like, now I move on to the next journey, next iteration of where I want to be in my career. But they certainly were huge influences in my life, because people have come around to my house and said, where are the certificates and trophies and stuff like that? That was that part of my life. Now I've got to strive for the next part, and now I've got to strive. I very seldom look back. It's just, I look forward, you know, for most of my life.
You're looking at your career and you know, your sports. You've done so many things, and even if we go back to the media side, when you were getting that ridicule, how much self-control did it take for you to? Because you know, you're coming from that background, you could have just hit them if you really wanted to, but then what would have happened? And it goes to show the discipline and self-control you had, because it would have cost.
Look, I also think that I also feel sorry for people sometimes, and just think they're not probably going to go very far in what they're doing, because if you go back to that base, you know, it's a low person that thinks to that, because you just think, and then you think, look, that's not the way society works, and when you do that, you're lowering yourself to where they are. And that's all they have. You know, it's about looking up. When you achieve things in this life, you get to that point, and then you go, okay, what's the next level? And when you go to the next level, you can't think of the physical confrontation. You got to think what the mental confrontation is. It's when you get a seat at the boardroom, you can't be thinking, I want to smack that guy over there, because that's not going to solve the issue. I'm about solutions focused, and that's a very temporary measure to helping that. When I left TVNZ, I'd left media for good. It's like 20 plus years as a news anchor at TV3, and I went, and you know, most people when they've had 20 plus years, they either retire or they become consultants immediately. I was very fortunate. There's a little bit of luck involved that I've worked now for 2 global organizations in senior management level. And so it takes time to, you know, and then I got bashed around again, because people think, you know, we don't care what you did before. And most people were really good to me, but there are a lot of people who weren't, and people who just want to bring you down to their level. So you just take a breath, and go, my point here is to learn, and I want to be better because this is a new industry now. Can I do this, or am I going to fail? My intention is not to fail because I have a lot at stake here. I've given up a long career. Some say might have been successful. So now this is where I want to be. And so I did that with General Motors Holden, and then I moved to Coca-Cola Amatil, and 5 years with both, and then lured back into broadcasting. And so no one's ever done that stuff before, like anywhere. And so I feel really honored to have had that and then get lured back into broadcasting again when I thought my days in broadcasting were numbered or over. And so maybe I've got more to offer, and then I've been able to step outside that media bubble and then see what it's like from the outside, having started from a young age. And then I bring all this experience now from the corporate world into the media environment again. And so I come back with a whole bag of information that I never had before. And so, it's a real privilege to be able to do that.
You raise a good point around like humility and ego, and you're rocking into boardrooms with some big, I guess, high profile, high net worth people, and they'll just treat you the same, if not worse. And it doesn't matter if you've been in the ring, right? Did you ever think though, hey, do you know who I am? I'm a former kickboxing champ, or did that not do your mind?
No, because it's humbling when you are able to walk into the boardroom, because it's like I've had to start from nothing and then start working my way up again. I'm a nobody, and it's really humbling to be able to even have a seat there. And it's so much work. I had to go back to university, I had to go study, and it's been a constant evolution of who I am to be able to even talk. It's a different speak. It's a totally different environmental speak. And then going from General Motors, which is an auto industry, over to the FMCG industry, the fast consumable goods industry, it's like totally different environment. So it's like I was starting again to learn this different speak is really, really challenging. And so there's no place in there for egos. There's just not, because as soon as I start thinking that and then I've got a team under me. So not only do am I challenged with learning, you can't fake it. And so I have to learn that. And then I've got to help my team to be better. And it's not like saying, I'm the boss, you have to listen to me. It's like, I'm here to guide you, and I want to help you to be the best you can, because we've all had really crap bosses. That's not what I ever wanted to be. I don't want to hold myself up as an icon. So it's been humbling for me all through that whole journey for me. And so no, I've only ever gone in like, am I worthy to be here, more than anything else? And I just want to get better and better until my days are over.
It almost goes to show like the neuroplasticity of your brain, because you're going from one end to this, that. You're doing kind of like a workout, like what do you call it, like a CrossFit for your mind.
Yeah, 100%.
All these different forums.
Yeah, well, it's constantly evolving. I can't stay in one place. It's like I've got to continually learn and evolve. And then, as I said, going from General Motors to Coke, it's like it's whole new learning for me. And I arrived, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is all new. This is a totally different industry. You think that being in corporate affairs for one is the same as the other, and it's just not. There are new requirements, new learnings, new ways of speaking, and it's like, all right, I got this. And it's just learning and learning. And so you can't go in there going, yeah, no, I'm the man. You just have to wipe all that out, humble yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to learn.
Going back to like, success and who you are, and, you sound so driven as a person. Do you think it comes to, the reason why people are successful is role models growing up, a bit of self-taught intuition? Like what do you reckon that it is as to why you're so successful? Did you have a really good upbringing in terms of people inspiring you, good role models? Has a lot of been self-taught as well?
Yeah, I certainly think there's something in us that drives us, because not everyone's driven, and that's just as well. Otherwise, we'll all be fighting for that top spot. See, I don't consider myself a fighter as in Israel Adesanya fighter. Or a Ray Sefo. I consider myself a fighter as in I'll fight to get where I need to be and do my best. I think there's something in us that drives us because we all start from the same, well, we don't all start from the same places. We're talking about ethnic beginnings, but we start at a certain point. What drives us on? So 10 of us start at the same point, for example. We fight through and then some drop off and some of us keep going. So what keeps us going when some can't keep going or some won't keep going and some are content to stay at this level? I'm not a person that's content to stay at this level. I want to get as much as I can and fight for as much as I can and learn as much as I can while I can. And so there's something in us, I think that's innate, something we're born with that helps drive us, right? It's that we hear about it in rugby all the time where we know that these people are talented, but hard work can outdo talent.
100%, yeah.
And so this is one of the things that always impressed me about Ray Sefo, for example, and it just blew my mind because he was one of these guys that worked really, really hard, trained every opportunity he got. For whatever reason, he trained. Not everyone does this. Not everyone with the talent and ability will train that hard. Some people will just go, I've got this, you know, I've got the talent and ability, I've got this, it's not an issue. He trained. So what drove him, or what were the key drivers for him that this other person on the same, who might have been better than him at one stage, didn't drive? So this other person carried the weight. They didn't do that extra bit of training, because that extra bit of training is going to push you above somebody else. And it's the same in the boardroom. It's the same in the corporate world. What drives you above somebody else that gets you that job? Now, you can't always determine how you're going to get that job, or if you will, because someone over here might be a bit of a moron and they might go, ew, I don't like him, so I'm going to pick that person for the job. Yep. You can't determine at the end of the day the outcome. So how you drive above somebody else, but there's also the talent, right? Izzy, for example, is 6'4". If he was 5'4", he wouldn't be the middleweight champion, right? So the determinants of where you get to in a sport is also what you're born with. Yeah. You know, what your build is. So there are also birth determinants, but there's also the brain. Some people are smarter in certain areas than others. It doesn't mean they have all-round smarts, because there's social smarts, there's math smarts, there's English smarts, there's science smarts. Where are we meant to be, and how can we drive these things? I'm not smart at math. My son and my daughter are super smart at math. I'm not. I admit that, and I don't really care for it. But I'm really good at English, and they are too. But you know,
jealous.
So I get all I've got, and I'm passing everything I can onto them. So by the time they're my age, they should be 2x, 3x better than me. I want them to be. I want them to be better than me. They have to listen so that they get all that I've got by the time they're my age, because I didn't have that. So what drives, what's better, what helps?
There's so many variables, right? And you talk about consistency, you talk about hard work trumps talent. I mean, I've gone to the gym 5 years later where a guy that was average is champ, and they've stuck at it, they've been consistent, and they've
what drives? Don't know what drives.
Well, but also too, with the drive you have, aren't you blessed that you just have it naturally, because it's in you? It's a fire that just burns. It's not going away. It's just part of who you are. I'm
super grateful. I would hate not to have that, because I want to be the best. Now, this is the thing that I felt, and people hate this. I felt, and I still do feel, that I'm the best news anchor in the country. But it doesn't mean that I'll be given that job, because people hearing that will go, oh, I don't want to watch it now. And that's okay. But if you got independent judges, I probably shouldn't even say this because people hate me more. But if you got independent judges, there are a couple of people in this country that are really good. And that would be, I'm not saying that I even want to do it, you know, but to me,
who are they? Who are those ones that you think are really good as well?
Simon's really good, but there are a whole lot of determinants in what makes a really good. I think Wendy, Hillary, I trained both of them, but they're really, really good. You know, if you go back, Judy Bailey was a machine. You know, you've got people who are really good, but maybe for whatever reason, people didn't like watching me, or they didn't see me as what they wanted. Because there's also an aside, and that is you've got to be a really goody two-shoes that people can go, I like them because they're safe. I'm not safe because I'm a bit of a tutu, and I'm a bit of a rebel, and people don't like that for their safe newsreader. I'm just not, and that's where I fall down. But if you're looking at it, say if you got 5 independent judges from around the world that don't know who we are, if they just take us on face value, I think I've got a chance.
With that, I saw your announcement the other day. Can you tell us about the new project or venture you're working on?
So one of I've gone to Maori Television for the first time, and I've never been there before. And I went to Maori Television because, and I wasn't going to, because I had chats with TV1 and TV3 after I guested on the AM show a year ago. And it was like people maybe surprised that I still looked like I could be on television, which was really, really flattering. I was never going to go back into media again. And then Maori Television came to me, Arana Taumata, who was the head of news and current affairs. And I said, no, it's just not somewhere I don't want to go back into media. But I trusted. I have to trust people. If I don't trust who's in charge, I can't do it. It's like, yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. So we talked over several weeks. And I thought, and I did some digging, and I thought, he's good, man. I can trust him. And so he convinced me. So we made some adjustments on the show, and I thought, yep, it's people. Like it's the same with political parties, right? I don't support our political party. I support people. People are where it's at for me. I can't say I'm National or Labour or the Greens. If I like the people, it's the people I like. That's cool. That's me. That's who I am. So I was working at Coke, head of corporate affairs for New Zealand and Fiji, started doing this interview show at Maori Television, and I was over capacity with what I could do, and then started working on some programs, and I couldn't do everything. So I've had to resign my position at Coke, but I've gone back as a consultant, which is really awesome. That they've never done that before, so that they want me to stay on. So I'm working as a consultant for Coke, and so as in my role as a consultant, it sort of opens me up to be able to be a consultant for other organisations as well, in terms of, you know, connecting with iwi, connecting organisations, because a lot of organisations weirdly don't have any connection with the iwi in their rohe, their area, and also with government, because I have a lot of quite close connections within your government. So, and also to be able to help to consult with organisations. So I'll set up a consultancy to be able to help organisations that haven't before been able to have this kind of help. So I'm doing that, as well as Maori Television, as well as working on other programs that are coming up, hopefully this year.
Now, with everything going on, and then going back to media, mental health's a huge thing these days. And I mean, not everyone just wakes up in the morning screaming, jumping out of bed, saying, I'm going to take on the world. Whenever you've walked into the boardroom, or you've just about present, have you ever had feelings of doubt? And then how do you get yourself through it? How do you get yourself through that?
Oh, yeah, I'm terrible for that, man. Like, people go, but you were on television. It's like, yeah, but I'm talking to a camera. You know, especially because the corporate world is a newish career for me, and people are so surprised when I have anxiety leading up to that. In fact, excuse me. In fact, when I've emceed probably hundreds of organizations, functions, events, from everything to everything, and I get anxious prior to those, and I've sort of pulled right back on things that I do with that now. It's time-wise and otherwise, but I get anxious. And when I've gone in to present to in boardrooms and stuff, I get anxious. I just do, because I think it's the feeling that I might not be able to do what I should be doing or speak the way I should be speaking. And I do. I get really anxious. If it's about broadcasting, which has been my whole life, I got that. If it's about training people, I got that. If it's my team, I've got that. But when I'm talking to people who have been in that organization for 20 years, it's a little bit overwhelming. And that's kind of tough for me. So it's not that easy for me, to be honest. And that's where the humility comes in. I don't walk in there like, yeah, g'day, I'm Neil Waka. I do that for a joke, to be honest. People who know me take the mickey out of me, honestly. And I do it to myself. I joke and take the mickey out of myself, not my work, all the time. So when it comes to me, I'll walk into a meeting sometimes and go, Neil Waka. And people go, oh, I can't believe it, Neil Waka's here, right? And we joke about it. But when it comes to the work, totally serious about the work. So when I go into a boardroom like that, I can't even joke about it. I can't even joke about it because I'm a little bit anxious about it. I get anxiety, man. And people don't understand.
It's interesting to hear that, because I think too with a lot of media presenters, they probably do potentially get that, but I've never really seen that. You look nervous, you do a great job of
Not on camera.
Yeah.
Well, first time back after 10 years, even on the AM show, I loved it, man. It was like coming home. Honestly, it was just like, I love this. I loved it. And I loved it. I didn't always get it right. The read wasn't the best for me, but it was just like, honestly, it was like coming home. And then when I was on air for the first time, Maori Television, it was beautiful, man. It was a beautiful experience for me, just being on air. And afterwards, I was like on a high. I loved it. And I got so much really amazing feedback on it, but it wasn't even that. It was just like it felt really amazing being back. But then again, I start back going, okay, how can I get better? How can I do this better? And there's an expectation that my Māori has to be better, because I set up the curriculum for English and Māori pronunciation when I was at TV3. But there's a higher expectation at Maori Television. And I think it's more challenging because there are longer sentences in Māori and I'm not fluent yet. And that's the trick, man. That's where I've got to start fighting to get that right, and I have high expectations.
Based on what you've hearing your story, I think you're going to love it. You're going to thrive on it. It's a new challenge.
Oh, I love being back on air. It's challenging being back in newsrooms. Newsrooms they've got their own style.
I was going to say before the next question is that going back, you obviously look like you loved it, but I was wondering too if it did bring back any old memories, because it feels like you're almost putting back your armor on, gloving up, getting back in. And it would have reminded even when you first started back in the day when you're so young and fresh-faced but I think too with experience, you would have rocked in with a new confidence. That's probably why you did own it when you're on the AM show now, which has led to this, right?
Yeah, being on air is one thing. Dealing with some of the challenges within newsrooms is a whole other ballgame, because you have to deal with other egos. People who want to be, people who have and not quite got there. There's so much to deal with. There are a lot of challenges within newsrooms. And when you're at the top of the game for so long, you see everything that goes on. You see the people that want to be there. You see the people that think they should be there instead of you. There's just so much. I mean, I could go on and on and on about that, but it's just the on-air stuff is what buzzes me out more.
With that, right, you mentioned your children before. With them growing up in this day and age and you having all the experience, do you find that like your next biggest challenge as well, like raising them in such a, I guess, diverse social media oriented world? Because you've got so much experience with the media, the kickboxing, they must come to you with issues and you probably, have to give them the not hard advice, good advice. That must be a big challenge, right?
I usually give it to them before they come to me. I talk about stuff all the time. Like, I'm very critical about people on television, about the way they present news, about the way they do things. I asked my kids one time if they'd want to be on television, if they want to do the news, and they go, no, you'll just criticize us all the time. And I said, no, I'd make sure you weren't making those mistakes before you went on air. But no, I'm very critical because I don't know where some of them get their presenting skills, but I don't know what happens between what they're doing in real life and what they're doing when they get on camera. But the reality is, in our day and age with social media, a lot of these kids are getting a lot of experience being on camera anyway, whereas when we were younger, we didn't have that. Yeah. And I think they know a lot about being on camera better than most. What they fail to grasp is that they have lots of goes at it before they do it. So the live stuff is a little bit more challenging for them. So they might take 500 photos of and put all these different filters on. Whereas live television, see, I'm not very good at pre-records, but I'm really, live is the buzz for me. So we'll do a pre-record and it's like blah, blah, blah. Oh, got that wrong. Blah, blah, blah. And it's a mental thing because I think subconsciously I know we can do it again if we need to, but the live thing is what is the thrill for me. Live television, nothing like it. Whereas some people can't do live. It's a struggle for them because it builds up all this. Live is hands down the very best thing in the world for me. There's nothing like live television because it's all or nothing. It's there. It's like fighting. It's like you don't pretend to fight. You get out there, you do it, and you succeed or you fail. You got no second choice, second chances. And that's what live television is for me. You do it or you can't.
It's quite interesting you said it because some people would be the other way around. You love it. You love the pressure, the heat of the moment. Now, in saying that, we've got a few topical things coming up. Obviously, Parker Far this weekend. Any? Are you going to be watching, and any predictions?
Yeah, I'd like to see Far. I put. I think the success of this. I think we've got two. We're lucky. We've got two big heavyweight boxers. Here's the thing for me. The more experience goes to Parker, right?
Yeah.
A lot more experience. He's been in the big heat of a world championship title.
100%.
Far's a bit bigger. This will see what city kickboxing can do on a big stage with a boxer outside of the MMA ring, octagon. Because he's bigger, but it all comes down to what happens in here. Because both of these guys are quite relaxed outside the ring.
Yeah.
And I think it determines, both of them have the ability. So I think this will determine how they can switch on when they get inside the ring and make some business happen. Because we've seen what happened with Parker when he fought Joshua. And that was a big failure, actually, in reality, when and it must have been daunting. We don't know what it's like, right? Far hasn't been put in this kind of spotlight before. So does he bring it? Because he's a big boy and he's bigger than Parker. So if he brings that head business and he can make it happen up here, he's going to be a tough prospect.
Mate, we might have to get you in the commentary box. Would you ever want to do that?
Oh, yeah. I used to do all the K1 stuff years ago.
That's right.
Yeah, I'd love to. It depends, see, because physically, you got all that. When you've got those two elements together physically, then it depends what happens here, because we know they're both prepared with the skills.
With you as well, for, being a former champion and then, obviously a busy corporate life, you must still train, right? But is it combat related? Is it just gym? Like, what sort of physical exercise are you into these days?
Yeah, like one of the things for me was I loved to train, loved it, and I trained, but I just don't get to train as much now. I struggle to find people to train with that can suit my schedule. I need to train with people.
Yeah.
I try and train with my kids. They don't want to train with me because they think I'm too beastly. But I find it difficult when I don't have people to train with. I can justify not training. And yeah, I struggle with that, and I don't, it's having people to train with. That's probably, I was thinking of going and train with John Conway because I think he's the closest to me right now. But it's just I want to train more. I struggle to. I've got a gym set up. Maybe it's just
I still see John sparring, so we could see a bit of a sparring.
Yeah,
I'd pay
yeah.
money to see that between you and John Conway.
But the funny thing is, I've gone up behind him a couple of times and put him in a choker when he hasn't known I'm there. And I've threatened him and say, "What you got now, boy?"
Did he even care? Or did he oh.
No, he didn't care. I've twice, one at Linmore and one in Napier. I happened to see him in Napier. I've gone up to him both times. What you got?
He's got Lani on, I think, this weekend, fighting.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a good card. Now, what next, mate? I mean, you got so much on. What do you want to say to everyone watching today on everything going on?
I think it's about evolution. Evolution's the key for me, and everyone. It's not about trying to prove to other people. It's always about proving to yourself. I think most people have some kind of struggle mentally. I do. It's just fighting the good fight all the time. It's making sure that you fight past the challenges that are. Everyone has challenges. Everyone has struggles, but it's fighting past it and trying to be the better you.
Perfect. Well, we'll put all your links and contacts in the bio and description below, and really appreciate having you on today, Neil Waka.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I appreciate you reaching out. It's been good talking to you.
Thank you so much.